through this. Okay. Today we're going to start Daf Ayin Beis Amud Beis. That's 72b. See that? It's a Mishnah. We thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. And the schus of our learning we should have to be some English immediately. And it should be our first Shlema, one that needs. We start like this. Derech Talmidei Chachamim, the way of the sages. Talmidei Chachamim, the students of the sages. There's two interpretations of Talmidei Chachamim. The Rambam. There's two versions in the Rambam, depending on which manuscript you use. When the Rambam writes Talmid Chacham, in one of the versions he writes Talmid Chachamim, a student of the sages. That's from one of the manuscripts which the Steinsaltz Rambam uses. But the other version is Talmid Chacham. Talmid Chacham would mean that he's a student and a sage at the same time, because every sage in Torah is always studying. They consider themselves students. Whatever the case is, the way of the sages is before his daughter leaves his jurisdiction, which means that she's becoming an adult. She's reaching maturity. So, Aymerla, he would say, "Kol nedarim shenadarta b'toich beisi." Any vows that you took in my house, arein mufarim, they should be annulled, because soon he's not going to be able to do that. So he has to make sure that he takes care of it in the right time. Right before she leaves, that's what he does.
Wouldn't this have to be a sage?
Because it's a father.
Yeah, there's no mention of the 24-hour period.
Oh, so 1 second. The real issue here, what you're bringing up, is that did he hear the vow or did he not hear the vow? That's what the Gemara is going to discuss. It seems like you can just say any vow that you took, I don't even know what it is, or if it, whatever it is, it should be annulled. It seems like you don't have to know about the vow. You don't have to hear it. The Torah says when he hears it, he has 24. So what's he doing here? That's the question the Gemara is going to discuss. Yeah, it sounds like what we do. Erev, right? What is it? Erev Rosh Hashanah. When do we do Atash? Erev Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah. We say any vows that we don't know about, whatever, they should be annulled. So something. That's what it sounds like. The husband should do the same thing. Actually, Tikkunis should say before he marries her. That means he's already betrothed, and he's able to annul vows together with the father. So the father, what we mentioned before, was when she's reaching maturity, but it could also be when she's about to get married. So the father would annul all the vows right before the wedding. As they're walking down to the chuppah, he would say he's holding her arm. In some communities, right? That's how it works. Some communities, the father and the mother hold the kala. So in Chabad, it's both mothers hold the kala. But he would say all the vows that you took should be annulled, and then the husband would do the same thing. He says as she's walking down the chuppah, he would say all the vows that you took should be annulled. Until you enter into my rishus, there should be annulled. Because once she enters into his domain, his jurisdiction, which means married, he can't annul them anymore. No, it doesn't mean he can't annul them anymore. It means he can't annul the old ones anymore.
This is the Baal.
This is the Baal, the husband.
He can't annul the old ones that she took when she was
prior to the wedding. Because once the wedding happens, he can only annul the vows that happen from then onward.
He's got this 24-hour thing.
Yeah, well, he's going to always have the 24-hour thing. But the question is, which vows can he annul? And it can't be vows that were taken before. It must be vows that were taken, that were uttered after the wedding. You can't say I took a vow many years ago, and then he would annul it. He can't do that. So right before the last time, both the father and the husband get the vows annulled of the. Rami Bar Chama has a question. Rami Bar Chama is son-in-law of Rav Chisda, right? Friend of Rava. Yeah. I mean, if he has vows, he's got to get them annulled by the rabbi. Yeah, he can't. He doesn't have anyone that's his authority that can say, "No, I don't accept that vow." On there, right under Rav Chisda. Yeah, Rami Bar Chama, right there next to Rava. So Rami Bar Chama, yeah, it's often that Rami Bar Chama has these questions. Over here we have a few of them from him. Rami Bar Chama has a question. Baal, that he's the one that married Rav Chisda's daughter. When she said, where Rav Chisda said, "Which one do you want to marry?"
Said, is he the first or the second?
He was the first. She said both of them. There are two students there. Rav Chisda asked his daughter, "Which one do you want to marry?" So she said both of them. So Rabbi said, "I'll go second," because that would mean that the first one would pass away and she would marry the next one. So Rabbi said, volunteered to go second. Anyway, so his question goes like this: Baal Mao Shiyafer B'lei Shmiya. Can a husband annul the vow without hearing it? V'shama Isha Dafkahu, I love Dafkahu. This is all based on the pasuk. It says, "Vayim b'yayim shmaya isha yani b'yayim b'yayim shmaya isha yani." If on the day that the husband hears, he annuls it. It sounds like he has to hear it, right? Or maybe that just means that he has a day, but he can really annul it without hearing it as well. That's the Gemara's question. Does he actually have to hear it?
In the example that you gave, the father or the husband,
they're annulling it without hearing it, right? That's what we're going to see in a moment. Tashima, take a look. Come and listen. Quote the Mishnah. That seems to be a support for one of these, one of the sides that he doesn't have to hear. The way of the sages, actually, before the daughter leaves his jurisdiction, he says, any vows that you took in my house, they should be annulled. But he didn't hear the vows, and he's annulling them just like any vows that you would have taken, and he's annulling them. Obviously, he doesn't have to hear them. Gemara answers, when he hears them, he's going to annul them again. Interesting answer. Obvious question comes up. So what's he doing now? If he's going to have to annul them again, so why did? So then, what was his point of discussing it and of bringing up that I'm annulling all the vows if that doesn't work? As well, Chakamash is coming to teach us that Urcha the Tzorva Merabanan La Dure. The Tzorva Merabanan, the rabbi, the Talmud Chacham, the sage, is going to enter into a conversation to bring up if she ever made a vow. So he says, "I want to annul all your vows." So she'll say, "Oh yeah, I actually made a vow," and then that way he'll be able to hear it and then annul it. She never told him the vow. He's going to bring up the topic of conversation, and that's what we're learning here in the Mishnah. That before she leaves, he says, "If you ever took a vow, I'm annulling it." And she says, "Oh yeah, I took a vow." And he says, "Okay, what was the vow?" And then he annuls it. But it wasn't the first statement that annuls the vow. It's after he hears the vow that it works. So what's the first statement for? Well, that's just to bring up the conversation. Okay. I'm not sure. It's a good question. It means a young sage. I don't know what the word comes from though. No. Is that like periodicals or something? Essays? I've been out of it. You know, Safaria has on it the gesture dictionary. When you open Safaria to the Gemara, so you can click on reference, and then it will open up the dictionary. So you can get the word where it's found in other places. Okay. Ron has a question here. Question goes like this. There's a question. Why can't he say that the vows should be annulled when I hear them? He's making a statement. Now he's saying that before he hears them, he says they should be annulled. We say, oh, that doesn't work. He didn't hear them. So then why do you bring that up? So he said, well, he's just bringing that up to get the conversation started, so he should hear them, and then he'll say it again. Ron asks, why doesn't he say?
I have a question. I can't ask it in the elevator. Isn't that leaving the witness? I thought that's illegal. So why? Because that's what he's doing. He's not asking it out of curiosity. He's doing it to lead the witness to trap it. To trap him. That's my first comment. The second comment is what you mentioned about Safaria 2 minutes ago while I was in there. That's called an internal concordance, because concordance is the case. None of them know the name of it because you can actually buy that.
Concordia.
Now, what does he mean? What does he mean? Lead the witness. Why? What does that mean? But what does it mean to lead the witness? To say, ask the witness, what did you see?
He set him up for
You do that on cross-examination. Hear your story. I can't say that. So, Robbie Smith, don't you like the professor, correct? Then you just say yes. And now I take you to the next place. I just want to say yes or no. It's my story.
So the witness, when there's a leading the witness, that when there's a testimony, he just has to say anything without any questions. Just tell us what you know.
I have to ask questions that are open.
Oh, okay.
Is that correct?
Uh-huh.
Sounds right.
See, the doctor brings it up and it's supported by 2 lawyers. That's a rarity.
So yeah, I don't think it's
You don't think
actually
it's a witness?
it's
I don't know.
actually
He's-
direct,
he's setting
because
up-
this is not hearing her story. This is telling us if she has any vows.
Well, that's the story. You have any vows? And then she says, and he goes, oh, did you hear that? Very similar.
Yeah, but it's not a testimony about something. This is just she's saying if she has vows.
I didn't mean this.
There's no
Her
bias, yeah.
testimony. The bias then is the husband then can say, oh, I'm there for Mayfair. I meant it on the husband. They led him into the primrose path, hearing her by setting her up. Never mind, move on.
Okay.
Elevated to him.
It's like saying, he tells his I'd like to buy you a ring. So she says, oh yeah, I have 5 fingers, and or something. I mean, it's not like leading,
The question seems kind of open also because it says about the vows and they didn't target one specific vow.
Right. Does he have to target a specific vow? That we're going to see at the end of this Gemara. Yeah, but meanwhile, the Ran asks the question, why can't he say something about the future? that it should be annulled when I hear it. And the answer to that the Ran gives is that he would only be allowed to do that if she would be in his jurisdiction when he hears it. But he can't say that when you make a vow later, after you mature, that it should be annulled based on my statement now, because she's going to be out of his jurisdiction. So what we need to do is get it annulled beforehand. So he can't say it should be annulled when I hear it, because that would be for afterwards. He has to get it annulled now, unless it should be annulled when I hear it immediately, when I'm about to. You follow what's going on? There's
Yeah, I know, my mind keeps on jumping to future. I'm thinking of the sense where there'll be a situation where a Pharaoh Torah Secha. So there'll be a situation in the future where it's possible that the Chachamim might have to go say, these laws don't apply. But then when did they do it? Then we say it now, just throw me around. Ping pong balls.
okay.
No,
Let's take a look at the next piece. Gemara now says Tashema. And we thought we had an answer. We thought we had a very good answer that the annulling vows, he doesn't have to hear them. He doesn't have to hear them because he was able to say any vows that you took. He said, "Oh no, that was just end to the conversation, and then he's going to actually annul them after he hears them." We call that like a doichik answer, but okay. Tashema miseifa says v'chein habal, the husband, actually tikanis l'reshusay oimela, he says the same thing. The husband does the same thing. He says that any vows that you took should be annulled. So that seems to be a proof. The Gemara answers Hachanami Dharmala L'chishamana says, how does they translate it? When I hear it.
When I hear about them upon my return.
When I hear about them. Okay. Now, there's different versions to this text here. One version is the one that we have, of course, L'chishamana, that when it came to the father, we didn't say that it should be annulled when I hear them. He said he had to bring up the conversation, and then he would hear them, and then he would say they should be annulled. By the husband, we say, we don't get into that. We don't say that he's starting a conversation. We were saying that they should be annulled when I hear them. So that answer from the Ran, that by the father, she's about to leave his jurisdiction. He can't annul anything that's going to take place after it's out of his jurisdiction. But by the husband, she's not leaving his jurisdiction. She's entering into his jurisdiction. So why is he annulling it beforehand if it's only going to get stronger? The reason why he's annulling it before he marries her is because while they're betrothed is because then he's able to annul vows that were taken prior to the betrothal as well. He's about to enter into a state where he won't be able to annul anything that was taken, any vows that were uttered beforehand. But it's not leaving his jurisdiction. Really, it's entering it, so he'll still be able to annul. So what's he doing? He's saying that when I hear about them, they should be annulled. So there's just one slight problem. He's able to annul them when he hears about them. He's able to annul them prior to hearing about them, that they should be annulled when he hears them, based on a statement before. The only slight problem is that if the vow was taken prior to the marriage, then after the marriage, he can't annul vows that were taken beforehand. So the Ran says that since the issue with annulling vows that were done beforehand is because he doesn't have the rights over what happened beforehand without the father. But since the father is obviously annulling the vows as well, because in order to annul vows on a betrothed woman, you need the father and the husband. So since the father annuls the vows, the husband annuls the vows when he hears them. The only problem is that maybe in the future he's going to hear them in the future after he's married. They won't be able to annul those from before. He says no, because he already has the father's annulment. He thinks it should work. According to this version of the Gemara, that's what this would mean, that he can actually annul vows that were taken prior, because he's doing it when they're betrothed, and he's doing it together with the father, even though he's only going to hear about it later. But there's really no proof. Basically, what we're saying now, where we're holding in the Gemara, is that there's no proof that he can annul a vow without hearing it. It's just going to take place after he hears it. Okay.
So, like by him saying that, like it allows him, like in the future when he hears about it, for that basically to take effect.
Yeah.
Kind of like an insurance.
Right. Now, after we do Ataras Nedarim, there's a paragraph that we say, says any vows that I take this coming year. I think we learned about it over here. Meiser Maida, it's called. Any vows that I take this coming year should be annulled. I don't mean it. That is saying any vows that I took the previous year. Oh, and it says both over there, right? Yeah. Did we say what the difference is? Kol Nidre and Ataras Nedarim?
We discussed once, I just don't remember the answer.
I don't know. Okay.
Isn't to cover the time gap?
Maybe.
Between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
What if they didn't, they were late to do it?
Then maybe you don't need to say Kol Nidre or listen to it. Maybe, in other words, if you say Taras Nedarim immediately before the Yom Kippur service.
And if you hold Yom Kippur Mechaper, you don't have to go, skip the whole thing. Wait, go to the sitters.
Yeah. Okay. Tashma. Someone says to his wife, Kol Nedarim, we're trying to answer our question if he has to hear the vow. Kol Nedarim shetaduri ad she'avi mimakom pleini harayim kayamim. Any vows that you're going to take until I return should be annulled. Lo yamer klum. Not
They
annulled.
should be
They should be upheld. They should be established. Lo yamer klum. That doesn't count. Probably because he didn't hear about them, right? It's for the future. Harayim mufarim. But let's say he says they should be annulled. Rebbe Lezer says, okay, they're annulled. Question is, but he didn't hear about them. This becomes a proof that he doesn't have to hear the vows to annul them. Gemara says, he says they should be annulled when I hear about them. So why does he have to say that now? Gemara says, let him annul them when he hears them. Says Kasavar Dilma Matridna Hahishaita. He's afraid he's going to return at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. The flight or the boat or whatever, and she's going to be there. She's going to say, "Why are you wearing that?" So I took a vow or something. It's like, God, just help me with my suitcases. And meanwhile, it's going to become nightfall. He won't annul it, and it's going to be too late. So he's saying beforehand that it should be annulled when I hear it. It should be annulled when I hear it. Why doesn't he just annul it then? Well, he's afraid he doesn't know what's going to happen in that little bit of time. He maybe get distracted with his coming back from the trip. Okay. Again, we don't have a real proof that he can annul things without hearing it. Tashema. Another attempt. Someone tells his caretaker, his trustee or something.
Here has a translated
What is it? Steward.
So it comes from the Greek word. It was meaning as trustee.
The steward for a little. Yeah.
Comes from the word trustee.
Right. A trustee. So it would be here like a shliach. He's telling a shliach that Kol Nedarim Shenadarte Nederes Ishti. Any vows that my wife takes, Mikan Vad Shavi Makomplaining, from now until when I return, Hafer should annul them. So he put someone in charge of his wife's vows. Well, Vahaferla, and he annulled them. Yachal Yemufarim. Maybe that should work. Talmud Laimar, that says, Isha Yekimenu v'Isha Yefirenu. Ramesha, you're taking off? Yeah.
That's the
Okay.
trail.
Yeah. Safe trim.
We meet
Listen
again.
there, just in case.
So, the pasuk says that it doesn't work. Isha Yekimenu v'Isha Yefirenu. Her husband, Isha, her husband, he can establish the vow and he can annul the vow, not the shliach, not the apotropos, not the trustee.
Who's saying this?
This is the Divrei Rabbi Yeshua. This is Rabbi Yeshua saying that the trustee cannot annul a vow. Amalei Rabbi Yonasan. Rabbi Yonasan is someone that always argues with Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yonasan says, "Matzina b'chal terakul shluchas ladam k'maisei." What are you saying? Shluchas ladam k'maisei should be allowed to. So there's a machlekes here between Rabbi Yonasan and Rabbi Yeshua. If the messenger, if the shliach can annul a vow for someone else's wife, the husband sent him to annul the vows. Okay. Now, v'afilu Rabbi Yeshua like Amar Ela Mishum Gezer Sakasav. Why did Rabbi Yeshua say you can't? Because the pasuk says it has to be the husband. Mishum Gezer Sakasavu Isha Yekimenu v'Isha Yefrenu Aval Dekuli Alma. But everyone would say Shluchas Ladam Kamaisei. If not for that pasuk, everyone would say Shluchas Ladam Kamaisei. But he didn't hear the vow. The husband didn't hear the vow. How could he send the shliach? Obviously, he doesn't have to hear the vow. Our issue wasn't that he heard the vow. Our issue was, can we say Shluchas Ladam Kamaisei in a case where the Torah says that it needs to be the husband? The husband didn't hear the vow. Right. But if the husband has to hear the vow in order to get it annulled, he didn't hear the vow. We have a proof that he doesn't have to hear the vow. He can annul vows even that he doesn't hear.
Steward is like husband.
You're asking an interesting question.
Oh, we're-
Professor's asking, so what that the husband didn't hear the vow? The messenger heard the vow.
Right. It's like this. It's like that.
Proof of the Gemara is that the husband didn't hear the vow. But let the messenger hear the vow, and if the messenger hears the vow, so he's like the husband, and that should work. So, two answers to this question. The Ran gives an answer and the Rush gives an answer. The answer of the Ran is that if the husband didn't hear the vow and he's actually not able to annul it, and the shliach hears the vow and he should be able to annul it because he heard the vow, the husband can't make a shliach for anything that he himself wouldn't be able to do. So the husband needs to hear the vow to be able to make a shliach. If you have to hear the vow. If you have to hear the vow, then the husband would have to hear it to be able to make a shliach to annul it. You can't give.
I don't know.
No, you can't give the power of attorney. You can't for anything that you're not able to do. No, it means that you don't have the jurisdiction to do. Right, not the skill level, it's the jurisdiction. The husband.
An example, a good example would be like a Shabbos court. They're not allowed to ask the court to do something that you're prohibited to do on Shabbos.
Okay, yeah, that's one way. The other way would be like a child can't make a shliach because if he's not able to do it, then you can only give over that power if you have it yourself. That's that's one answer. That's the Ran's answer. The Rush gives another answer. The Rush says that shlichus only works for an action. It doesn't work for something passive. And I can't tell Apotropos that hear my wife's neder and then annul it. I can only say annul it, but I can't say that you should hear it. You can't be a shliach to hear it. You can only be a shliach to do something. But hearing is passive. And you can't have a shlichus for anything passive.
It says here in the commentary that we learned shlichus from Korban,
Oh.
where it says shachatu, and they did the Korban, in which we're talking about the Korban for the
So that means it
congregation.
would only be an action.
But yeah, no, but for shachatu, we mean everyone is shachat, one person is shachat,
Right.
the one person for everyone else. Therefore, we learn
Right.
that everyone else is he's a
Right.
shliach for everyone else.
Right.
But it's
Right.
an action.
It's an action thing.
It's an action hero.
So
Shechet with a big shin.
big S.
Here mentions that there's no agency for the performance or transgression.
Oh, so 1 second. 1 second. The Taisus Rid talking about, can you make a shliach to put tefillin on you, to put tefillin on for you? That's it. Can you make a shliach to do a mitzvah shebegufa? So the Taisus Rid says that you can't. We know that you can't, but he explains that it needs to go on. It needs to go. The mitzvah was for tefillin to go on my head and my arm. So when he puts tefillin on, it doesn't go on my head and my arm. It goes on his head and his arm. So he's doing the mitzvah for me, but it doesn't end up on my head. So the Ktsays explains the Taisus Rid based on this rush that we just said. And because the action the person can do, he can actually put tefillin on. But the passive part, that whose head it goes on, that's the passive part, that it's on his head or my head, that I can't make that it should become like my head that it's going on. Because he says that's considered passive. And that's how the Ktsays explains that. He quotes this Rush over here. Okay. Regarding you see the question that the Ktsays has on the Taisus Rid, is that when it comes to doing an Aveira, you say Ein Shliach Ledvar Aveira.
You remember that poster? You never saw that?
I was gonna show you the shliach.
I have an original.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we all.
Anybody remember the old
All
Superman
been to your
with a
house.
shin?
Yeah,
Where you guys hanging in my
50
room?
years.
Does your
It
picture
wasn't a
have,
movie. It was.
does your picture have George Reeve?
No, it had.
Uh-huh. So the Ktsays' question is that when it comes to Shliach Ledvar Aveira, we say that there's Ein Shliach Ledvar Aveira. And our issue wasn't that it was something shebegufay. We just said that it doesn't work. I guess what he's saying is the fact that Ein Shliach Ledvar, the fact even that we have the concept of Ein Shliach Ledvar Aveira would tell me that really it should be associated with the person that's sending it. So why by Shliach Ledvar Aveira we say that it would have worked, but we say Ein Shliach Ledvar Aveira, that the sin he could have done, but when it comes to the mitzvah we don't say that. So therefore he says that there's just the passive part. That's why he interprets it with the passive part. Okay, the Magid wasn't able to go to the mikveh because he wasn't well. So he sent the Alter Rebbe to go to the mikveh for him during the Omer. the Rebbe went to the mikveh as a messenger for the Maggid. Problem is, how does it work? Because there's a passive part that it's your body that it's affecting. It's not just the action of dipping in water. Question.
Similar to the tefillin.
Right, it's just like the tefillin. Okay, so
How do you do it?
I'm asking the question. I don't know.
I mean,
I
Google it.
point all of you.
Google it.
Maybe it would be the part credit.
Part-
Like, I don't know, like
An exam in
part of
college.
mitzvah, like
I don't know. The Gemara says, "Hachanami damale lechi shamana meifala." It says like this: when he's telling the messenger that when I hear the vow, you should annul it. Right. So the Gemara says, "Lechi shama leifala." Why doesn't he just annul it? Husavar dilma matrid. We're afraid that maybe, just like we said before, when he's going on a trip, he wants to annul all the vows beforehand. So now also he's going on a trip. He's giving it that to someone else to do because he's afraid that he may hear about the vow, not have enough time to annul it because he's going to be distracted by things with this trip. I get my luggage, my suitcase, this, it gets hectic over there. So he wants to have someone else annul it for when he hears about the vow. Okay, so what we did here is that we pushed off answering the question, which seemed to be obvious answers, that he should be able to annul a vow even without hearing it. But that seemed to be obvious answers. We pushed it off by saying, oh, maybe it's a case that this and that. Boy, Rami Bar Chama has another question. Ran had a question before. Ran says that if he's so afraid that he's going to be distracted, why does he have to appoint a shliach? Why doesn't he just say that any vow that I take from when I leave until when I return should be annulled when I hear it? And when he gets back, it should be annulled, like we said before. Why does he have to appoint a shliach? The Ran says that maybe there's going to be vows that he doesn't want to annul. In the shliach, he can always retract from making the shliach. So he can always stop the shlichus. If he annuls every vow, then he'll actually be annulling out every vow, and he can't stop it. But when he makes a shliach, he can always say, okay, the shlichus is over. You can stop the shliach. So you can retract from the shlichus, and then yeah, that's what he says.
I think it'll match because in the first example, like the lady's changing status, so that's why like he says a statement before the wedding.
Right. Over here, there's no change in status, and it should work. Right. Okay, Rami Bacham has another question. What about a deaf person? Someone that can't hear. Is he allowed to annul for his wife's vows? If you want to say that a husband can annul without hearing, that's mishum debar mishmahu, because he's eligible, he's capable of hearing. But a cherish that's not even capable of hearing, this would go under the category of what Reb Zeir says. Maybe we should say like this, that when it's someone pledges a korban mincha, a certain amount. So it says you have to put 60 measurements into one bowl, and then the rest in another bowl. So we say, but why can you only fit 60? Why only 60? Because it says you have to mix the oil with the flour. It says, but we know that if the oil is not mixed with the flour, it's good anyway. So Reb Zeir explains it's good because you're able to mix it. You don't actually have to mix it, but you have to be able to mix it. So here also, you have to be able to hear the vow. You don't have to actually hear the vow, but you have to be able to. So maybe the cherish should not be allowed to annul a vow of his wife because he's not able to hear. A regular person doesn't have to hear because he's able to hear, but you have to at least have the potential. In other words, the potential kicks in. That's enough. Potential to hear is enough. Or maybe maybe it doesn't have to actually hear it. Shamisha means that he knows about it. He didn't actually hear it, but he knows that she took a vow and he is annulling it. It's a question from Rami Bar Chama. Amar Rava. Rava says, let's try to answer this. Tashema. V'shama isha. The husband hears prat leisha cheresh. This is excluding the wife of a cheresh, that he cannot annul the vows. Shema mina, that's a very good proof.
A person that is not able to hear, like the only way that he would be aware of the vow is if it's communicated to him,
Right.
like by sending.
Right.
So then, wouldn't that replace the hearing?
Apparently not. Here, Pasuk says v'shama. He has to hear.
But he's not able to.
Good. So is he allowed to annul his wife's vows? That's the question. If he can't, the Torah says that he's supposed to hear it.
But if hearing is not an option, wouldn't him like being aware of the vow like kind of like substitute that? Because
From the
it's
Brisa,
not-
we say no. From this, what Rava brings, that it doesn't work. It doesn't work because he has to actually hear it.
Does it say prat yotzei min haklal?
Hear means with the ear. Not always, but
This is very practical in terms of hearing. like,
right.
on Shabbos.
Right. I'm sorry.
Is this a prat
Actually,
yotzei min haklal?
Prat just means it's excluding.
Can't do.
Yeah, that every husband,
When we say using this word v'shama,
Shama Isha, Prat, this excludes a deaf person that can't
so
hear.
I'm saying, we're using
The klal of,
prat yotzei min haklal.
uh-huh,
In other words, the klal is you have to hear it, but because it now says v'shama, it's
right.
Can be done to the brain.
Okay. The Ramban says that what appears to him to be the conclusion of the Gemara in our question before of does a husband have to hear the vow or can he annul it without hearing? He says, based on what's going on here, that if it's only the cheresh that cannot annul a vow, but a husband can annul a vow even though he didn't hear it. That's the Ramban's conclusion. And he says that all the brises that the Gemara worked so hard saying that it's not a real proof, he says that was all a doichik. Really, all of those brises prove that he doesn't have to hear the vow. Iboilu, we have a new question. Can a husband annul the vows of two wives at the same time? The two wives took a vow, and he annuls it. He annuls them both. They both said, "We're never going to shower again." So he said, "Okay, annulled." Mufar lechi would mean to you. Mufar lechu or something. I don't know how to say the plural in Aramaic. So, would that work? So the question goes like this: Isa dafka, when it says v'shama isha, yom shmaya isha yani isa, on the day that he hears, he will annul it. Is it or her? I don't know. Isa means her or it, but it referring to the vow, or he would annul her vow or it or the vow. Does it mean specific, a singular? I love dafka. Maybe it's not specific. So Amar Ravina says Tashma. Ein mashkin shtei saitas ka'achas b'nei sheli b'gas b'chaberta. When it comes to a saita, someone has two wives. He suspects both of them of committing adultery. So he brings them to the Beis Hamikdash. So they don't have them both drink at the same time. Why? Because this one looks over at the friend. One of them was innocent. One of them possibly is guilty. Right? The guilty one looks at the innocent one, being so stubborn. She's ready to drink it, and she's not going to admit. So it's going to give her confidence oh, look at how strong she is. And she's going to end up not admitting because she sees the other one not admitting, but even though the situation was totally different. So you don't have them drink at the same time. Now, Rabbi Yehuda says, that's not the reason. This is based on the pasuk. The pasuk says that you have her v'hishka isa. That it's based on the pasuk. Okay, so now
What are they drinking here?
the sight of water.
Oh, so-
Now the question is, what did Ravina mean to say by this? Because when you quote a machlekes, the Rabbi Yehuda says that Isa means specifically a singular. The Chachamim say Isa is not specifically singular. So what Ravina is saying is that if Isa is not specifically singular, then you should be allowed to annul more than one vow at the same time, because it doesn't have to be singular. Isa is not singular. That's what the Chachamim hold. And we're not going to follow Rabbi Yehuda, we're going to follow the sages, the first opinion. However, there's a slight problem. Slight problem is that they both hold the same thing. Both the Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda hold that you can't have two saitas drinking the water at the same time. One says because of a pasuk, one says not because of a pasuk. Now, regarding the halacha, would we say when it comes to annulling vows that we should follow what Ravina is quoting to us? Should we say that we should follow that you should be allowed to annul more than one vow at the same time because Isa is not specifically singular? The Ramban, the Ran quotes the Ramban. The Ramban says that who are the Chachamim? Which opinion is this? It says the opinion of Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon, his rule is that we look into the reason why the Torah says something. It's called Darshinan time of the Kra. And the reason why the Torah says it, he wasn't saying that we don't use the pasuk. He's saying that why the pasuk says it is because one shouldn't have confidence based because of the other one. Therefore, it would come out. It would come out that that Isa would be singular for everyone, and you should be allowed to. Actually, the opposite. Come out.
You have it. It quotes that you shall make her drink, and which indicates her by herself.
By herself. What would come out here is that he can annul. It would come out that he cannot annul. He cannot annul, even according to the Chum, he cannot annul the vows together. And then the Ran adds in that he also can't establish the vows together. Let's leave it over here. Have a good day, everyone.
The top of the next page.
We got it's in the Mishnah.